Hi, I'm Jason Gorber. We're here to look at the Beats Studio Pro Circumaural or over-the-ear headphones. Now, it's been a long time coming. I've actually wanted to listen to the Beats headphones for a while. They've obviously been incredibly popular over the last decades. And now with the Beats Studio Pro, they're sort of upping it up a notch and really setting in a kind of interesting product within this niche, within the sort of premium over-the-ear headphone. This really is something that is designed from the ground up to work both with iOS devices and with Android devices. The case for the Beats, crunch, crunch, crunch. The case for the Beats is this sort of black, sort of soft material. It's not so heavy duty like it is with some competing models, but it's really nice and really compact, so that is a huge benefit of it. It is going to protect them from falls. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. And this is it. It's very straightforward pair of headphones. Nothing too funky about it. There are no blinking lights. It's mostly this plasticky material. It's very smooth. It's a hard plastic. It's a little bit slippery. It's not the most premium feeling, but it's certainly, you know, it's robust. There's not a lot of give in a good way. Soft padded thing for over your head. Band, there's the word I'm looking for. Again, a little bit rubbery, a little bit sticky, nothing like a plush material, unlike the ear cups, which again have this sort of fake vegan leather. So on the head, it's reasonably comfortable. There's a lot of tension on the band itself, no matter how much you adjust it. It's a pretty tight fit. And the ear pads themselves the dimensions of them are relatively small, so depending on the size of your ear, I find sometimes that the ear pad itself actually sort of starts squishing your ear. And there's enough tension right here that I found it after a couple hours not as comfortable as some other models to actually wear over extended period of time. They fold. They're really nice. They sort of hug each other. I sort of always love when it does this, and that it just tucks really nicely into the case, and you're good to go. There are basically three, I guess we'll call it main functions on the actual outside. There is the main power button, which also serves as essentially a select button. Multiple presses of this allows you to do things such as attenuate different modes. When it's plugged in, we'll get into that. It'll actually allow you to do different equalization. And on this side, again, there's the B button. And it's funny because I always, it seems ridiculous, I'm a reviewer, I should just read the documentation. But I sometimes just want to use it just as it is, just to see what I can figure out. A great deal of experience with all these. It took me a while, way longer than it should have, to realize that in addition to the B here, there is volume up and volume down sort of on the outside ring here. It's quite comical it took me that long to figure that out. It's one of those classic examples of once you know it, it's there. It's there right away. But nonetheless, for me, it was like, oh, that actually can adjust volume when it's over Bluetooth. And I think one reason I didn't notice, I was doing a lot of wired connection, and we will get into that in a second. On the front, you can see right here, we got two interesting little sockets. One is USB-C, which is more than charging. As I said, we'll get into that. And this is a 3.5 millimeter input. Inside the case, actually, we have in a little pocket here, we have ye old TRRS cable, 3.5 millimeter, 3.5 millimeter. It is not one of those 3.5 to 2.5 ones with a sort of micro input. So this is actually much easier to actually replace the cable. Both sides work the same way. Plug it in your headphone jack on whatever your device. And then, of course, USB-C to USB-C. It does not come with USB-C to Lightning cable. For charging, that's totally fine. But if you are going to use this in a wired situation, as I said, I keep teasing it, you are going to want to buy an adapter if you have one of those iOS devices, like certain iPhones that continue to use Lightning. That is all changing. Thank you to the EU. We have here, just out of the box, as Bluetooth headphones, very easy to connect. It actually does the sort of Google Quick Connect thingy. You put it near your device. In my circumstances, a Samsung phone, it paired almost immediately. There is an app. The app is relative on Android. The app does not allow you to do certain things that we've come to expect with apps of, headphones of this caliber. There is no internal equalization. I can't do over Bluetooth. I can't have a graphic equalizer. I don't have any of that stuff. What I can do is it's an easy way of doing any updates and for doing changing whether or not I have noise canceling on, whether I have transparency mode, or we simply turn all of that off. Before I go too much further, let's talk about noise canceling, because I really think that's one of the primary benefits this has of being part of the sort of greater Apple ecosystem, is whether it's a coincidence or not, the engineering in this for noise canceling is excellent. It is certainly commensurate with some of the class-leading products. In terms of it dialing down that sort of outer noise, it does a very, very good job without getting that sucking feeling. And it's a complicated thing, and I don't want to go into it too much, but basically what's happening when you actually have noise canceling is, of course, you have an audio signal. It's playing the reverse of that, which will cancel out any noise coming through. So the music you have is still going along, but any noise, you have microphones, in this case 4 microphones, actually listening all around and then playing back the opposite of that noise, and the opposite will cancel it out. If the wave is going up, this will actually go down. What's interesting about that is in some, when it doesn't quite get it right, or actually don't know the actual physics of it, you get this weird sucking sensation. It literally feels like you have a vacuum almost on your ears. I get none of that. Also, so often when you actually have noise canceling, you actually have the equalization of the sound change quite radically sometimes. The treble gets boosted. As soon as you stop having the outside noise, it gets really wonky. It does not with this, which means that I'm able to basically have noise canceling on all the time, even if I'm doing critical listening in a quiet environment. It's just on. It's just convenient to leave it on. The disadvantage, of course, is that it affects the battery life. It's registered at 40 hours battery life. With ANC on, you get a measly 24. But again, anybody who's actually used to in-ear headphones knows that this is a preposterous amount of battery, and we're more than happy to get that out of a device like this. There are some devices that will last 48 hours, 60 hours. Nonetheless, I think that this is more than sufficient of going between charges. Now, that being said, there is one particularly frustrating part about this, is it doesn't have an auto off, as it were, or an auto pause. Once it's on your head, once you take it off, the music keeps playing. Equally, it's a little bit finicky getting the power switch on and off. You're kind of holding it down, waiting for the lights to go off. Sometimes you forget. You just get home, you take your headphones off, and they're still connected to your device. They're still powered on. They're still draining the battery. It would be really nice for it to do auto pause and for it to eventually auto power off once it's no longer on your head. That's something certainly to actually incorporate potentially in a future model. Now, as I said, with Bluetooth, with of course for Apple users, it connects very quickly. Both Apple and Android have Find My Device. They have different branding names for that, but essentially what you can do is if you lose the thing, you have the ability to actually go and sort of track where it is. On Apple, you have one feature that I don't want to forget about, which is spatial audio. Now, again, this is something I'm not the biggest fan of, but some people actually really enjoy the ability to use. But what it means is if you're listening to, let's say, an Atmos soundtrack, something that is normally a surround mode, is that it actually uses the gyroscopes inside the headphone so that if the sound is coming from right here and I turn my head this way, I'm getting more sound on this ear, because this is as if the sound is coming from here. I do the same, I move over here, I'm getting the sound from here. This type of spatial audio is a boon. It's probably more beneficial for stuff like Atmos recordings, like stuff on Apple Music, or if it was to work, Tidal. I couldn't get it to work on Tidal. But that sort of stuff, I think would work for movies and stuff like that. I actually kind of prefer just the stereo mix because movie soundtracks are so compressed anyway. One of the sort of, it's not such a secret, but I'll say it. One of the things that people don't think about is a lot of times the multi-channel mixes on the streaming services are actually less compressed. I don't mean in terms of audio compression. They're actually in some ways more digitally compressed in terms of the actual bandwidth. But the audio itself is mixed in a different way. Yes, it's mixed for surround, but I mean literally mixed in a different way. Audio compression by bringing the low signals up and the high signals down and creating this sort of wall of audio. And that's the way most pop music works, but also the way most, classic recordings are done now. Classical recordings less so, but certainly classic rock, jazz, stuff like that, they actually crunch it. This is to make it everything sound when you're listening to streaming, that everything kind of sounds at the same level and you're not having these big peaks between what we call dynamic range. How much the the quietest moment to the loudest moment is crunched sort of in the middle. But Atmos mixes or other surround mixes, even when you listen to them in stereo, especially if you listen to them in stereo, you'll actually often get a preferred audio experience. So in a funny way, actually having these, listening to Atmos mix, but not with surround sound or spatial audio, actually found preferable, as interesting as it is. And it's one of those things. I mean, I think that the engineering, the 40 millimeter drivers, these are very capable headphones. Yes, the sound itself, especially through Bluetooth, is definitely tweaked. You definitely have treble being emphasized. You have low bass being punched up a little bit, which means that the mids are a little bit scooped. It's that smiley face EQ that works very complimentary for certain contemporary songs. I was listening to stuff like Beyonce. It sounded great. I listened to stuff like old jazz, and it didn't sound as great. Or for me, it didn't sound like what I want from headphones like this. And so that, that's something to absolutely take into consideration. The way I actually had to test for me as a non-iPhone user spatial audio was actually to connect it to my Apple TV. That wasn't something I'd ever considered doing before, but these do work the way that other Apple devices do with a very easy connection to Apple TV. So especially when I'm at my main system, I have access to my server that has all my music, but also streaming services all on Apple TV. It is a nice way of actually incorporating that. And a reminder that because of, again, ecosystem benefits, for those that actually don't want to have your main system on and just want to put on a pair of headphones, this is a pretty good way of going. Now, I'd mentioned again that there are wired options. I am a huge fan of this. And it's so frustrating to me when people buy when manufacturers make, not when people buy, let's not blame the consumer. When manufacturers make particularly premium devices and don't allow different modes of listening other than Bluetooth. The fact of the matter is Bluetooth is sufficient for some things, but if you actually want to sort of bypass the internal Bluetooth transmission, it's really nice to do it. The easiest way, or the most common way, is to have 3.5 millimeter input, that sort of headphone jack thing that we're used to. And for those people who have computer systems that still have mini jack in, it's great. I have portable devices that have exceptional desktop level DACs that I can use. It's not balanced, but I mean, it's certainly a little bit better. And you get more volume for certain tracks. The fact of the matter is that through Bluetooth, there is a cap about what the internal amplification can do. And so if I actually plug it in this way, I have a little bit more volume. Again, the rocker switch for volume will not work that way through the 3.5 millimeter. I'm relying upon external amplification for it to work, but it does what I need to do. What's really fascinating about these is that it actually uses USB-C audio. And so that I can plug in with a USB-C cable to the side, just like a normal charging cable, but I can plug this end into my portable device, my computer, whatever I want, and it basically makes this into the equivalent of a sound card. And in that way, I do have two things all at once. One, I am listening while it's charging. Not every headphone can do that. That is huge. So if you ever are on, let's say, a plane or something like that, and you just randomly had left it on because it doesn't have the auto pause, and you only have like 20 minutes of audio left, and you just want to listen to stuff, you can actually do the USB thing, have it charging, and have it still working that way audio-wise. fantastic. But the big thing is that because this is directly connected to your system, you're getting lossless audio. You're getting 24-bit, 48 kilohertz audio direct to this. Now, because it's limited to 2448, certain other files that I tried to put in here, I tried a 24192, I even tried raw DSD, didn't work. It actually showed that this device couldn't play back those files. I can convert this stuff, but just in terms of what you need to know, that's what you need to know. But if I plug it into my computer, literally, this is what's getting. So if I'm doing a video edit, or I'm doing just a general audio mix, 2448 we're throwing a lot of numbers around. CD quality is 1644.1, 16-bit, 44.1 megahertz. We are getting essentially 48, slightly more than CD. It's sort of DAT level, but 24-bit. You're getting really impressive audio from your system. So you have the ability to mix essentially at high bit rate and high bandwidth losslessly, and actually be able to monitor that through these headphones. And if there's one thing that sort of gives these the pro moniker, I think that's it. I found over hours and hours of listening to these that they were good. I'm not a huge fan of the sound signature, but my ability to sort of tweak using the plug-in cables allowed me to sort of ameliorate some of that stuff, to put it in other systems where I could tweak a little bit the equalization, where I could give a little bit more oomph out of these. I don't mean in terms of like bass punch, I mean just general sense of spaciousness. As soon as I plugged it into a different DAC, for example, everything really opened up. So it's clear that the hardware itself is relatively neutral. What is tuned, as it were, is the amplification. Now, that is the same for almost every device. Every device has choices about what they're going to make, and there are people that adore this sound, adore the sound that the Big B has had for, as I said, for decades now. And the fact of the matter is that you're getting here basically the best beats you can get, the best version of their years-long attempts to bring and truly popularize the form factor of over-the-ear headphones. You're going to get a completely different experience with in-ear than you are with these, of course. But these, especially for people who find in-ears a little bit frustrating, or definitely uncomfortable, you may find these are for sure the way for you to go. There's some pretty key competitors within this space, including those from the actual Apple brand, that this can be directly compared to. And on some things, these don't quite live up to what other models within the sort of range do. But there's some things about these headphones that I really think shine above any of the others. I'm a really big fan of the fact that you have so much flexibility. If this is the sound that you're looking for, I really think you're going to enjoy it. I think that despite the fact that the click button is a little bit noisy when you actually click on it, the volume rocker is a little bit weird, and when you're outside in the wind, the sort of plasticky material sort of brings in a little bit more wind noise. I still prefer having actual buttons that I can push rather than the sort of touch surfaces, because I'm inevitably hitting the surface just as I adjust and pausing it accidentally and doing stuff like that. So big fan of that. I just think that there's some little tweaks that can be done. The volume rocker is a nice and subtle way of doing it, but it wouldn't have been so bad for it to be sort of an up-down rocker on the side, like I've seen some other models. I would have liked the ability for the tension. It's not necessarily adjusted, but for it to be a little less tight. It's good that they're not going to slide off, but the fact of the matter is there's got to be sort of a happy bonus somewhere. The battery life, I think, is good enough. Certainly for me, it's more than sufficient. The auto pause, I think, is a major thing that I would actually like to see improved. And maybe that's even something that can be done in software. I'm not sure how Call quality is excellent. Noise canceling is excellent. All of those things that we actually would hope for from this. And as I said, the sound is very, very good, living up to the Pro name. Maybe not as neutral as it is with some other devices, but especially with your ability to actually wire in and sort of tweak the sound to your liking, you have that option. And when you're on the go, it doesn't have to be the most pristine, pure sound experience at the time. Sometimes it's just fine for you to be in a really good environment with decent noise canceling and hearing your favorite songs and knowing that you have other opportunities when you are doing critical listening to actually find other modes of doing it. So that is my look at the Beats headphones. I'm super excited to finally have had a chance to see them. I've given them many, many hours of workout. I highly recommend you giving them a listen. They may absolutely be the ones that you're looking for. I think they're light and powerful and have some pretty stellar features. Some things I would like to see improved, only because I think that we can make a great product even better, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But for now, I think these absolutely should be on your list of products to look at within this segment and compare favorably or unfavorably with others within a similar price range. At the very least, these should not be ignored, and you should definitely give them a shot, particularly if you're somebody who's sitting in front of a system where through the use of being able to plug in, you're actually going to get something even more extraordinary than what you get just plugging them in via Bluetooth. Once again, thanks so much. I'm Jason Gerber. Let us know in the comments what you think of these, and I'll see you next video. All the best. Take care.